They clearly do more than what they are being led onto by police departments, and I fear that they really affect our Fourth Amendment rights.
Law enforcement agencies from around the region highlighting the benefits of license plate readers for the community, but many others say they're concerned about their privacy. Emma McDarris joins us live with a closer look at the issue. Emma.
Francis, license plate readers and the Pacific brand flock cameras are used by Missouri law enforcement as an investigation tool. This map here, made by BanishBigBrother.com, a group of U.S. citizens worried about what these cameras can infringe and how can they infringe on your Fourth Amendment rights, shows some of the locations that these flock cameras are in. At the monthly Mo Republican Education Forum I was at today, citizens and law enforcement discussed their pros and cons.
A tremendous investigative tool. We've been able to secure warrant arrests, stolen vehicles, missing persons.
Keiring City Police Chief Todd Lemoyne says flock safety cameras have been used for 3 years now as an investigative tool. He says the main concerns about the cameras are scanning faces and tracking them. But he says the information received when a license plate matches a warrant or an alert is much more minimal.
It does not do facial recognition. It doesn't see who's driving the vehicle, but it will allow us to search by make, model, color, two-door vehicle, truck, whatever, any distinct emblems that may be on the back of the vehicle.
At Saturday's Missouri Republican Education Forum, Highway Patrol gave a presentation on how the cameras are used and their success rate. And those with concerns like Daniel McVeigh were able to ask questions about the program.
The main reason that I came today is looking for a little bit more clarification on the Springfield and Greene County access to the different data, as well as their actions that they've taken to address some of the vulnerabilities within the flock cameras themselves, and how other entities such as the FBI or DHS are accessing this data.
All of the agencies represented said they only access the camera when necessary and must have probable cause in order to request access to the camera's data.
Absolutely not. I get a notification on my watch as soon as a warrant passes right into the city.
The main questions and frustrations were centered around the flock company and parent companies not being regulated.
If there were something that was local, it was controlled by either the state or local government, that would be a whole lot different than any entity can get access, store data that are outside of the local and state policies of data retention, and they could keep this forever.
All the law enforcement agencies said they have internal audits to ensure it's not abused, but some of the audience were concerned about what they consider a lack of digital security at anything lower than the state level.